Next, we want to take a look at how do we legally determine access for students. Okay? The first step that we do is in the IEP goals, we must address how the student will be involved in and progress in the general curriculum. And we do this three different ways. Okay? First is through the present level of performance. We document where the student was performing and in the content areas that they struggle with. Okay? Also identify strengths and weaknesses. Second, we include measurable annual goals and objectives. Those goals must be related to the curriculum standards in that student's current grade. You'll also notice that the word measurable is included. We will measure the student's performance on those goals 4 times a year and report that measurement and performance to parents. Finally, IDEA states that a team approach must be used when you include IEP goals in the present level of performance in an IEP. Okay? This team approach includes several people: the parents, the special education teacher, the general education teacher, and an administrator in the school district who, key point here, is familiar with the curriculum goals and standards for that student. Those people play a critical role in developing that IEP. The second piece of legally determining access is looking at appropriate supplementary aids, services, accommodations, modifications, and supports. When we address accommodations, we're looking at what kind of adaptations need to be made that do not fundamentally alter the general curriculum, they do not lower standards, and do not change the construct being measured on a test. So when we identify accommodations on the IEP, it's important that we also document the anticipated date for the initiation of those accommodations, the frequency, the setting, and the duration of the accommodation. Finally, when we talk about making modifications, we're identifying a substantial adaptation that results in a fundamental alteration of the content. Okay? This is where we're looking at possibly taking a reading passage that the student would have typically read in the general ed classroom and identifying a reading passage that's similar at a much lower reading level that may not cover all of the content that original passage covered. Okay? There would be substantial adaptation there in terms of the content the student was receiving. The last piece of legally determining access includes an explanation if the student will not participate in the regular classroom. A child cannot be removed from education in age-appropriate regular classrooms solely based on the need for modifications to be made in the general curriculum. Those modifications must be made in the classroom, and the student must have access to those in the classroom. And then second, the IEP goals of the students who are not in the regular classroom must also address the general curriculum. So even if a student is identified as being pulled out of the regular education classroom during a content area, the goals related to that content must still address the general curriculum that the student would have learned in the classroom.